Well, I'm back from a week off and a lot's taken place. Let's get into it, and it's time to expose all of Colin's dirty little secrets. Let's go! That's right, ladies and gentlemen, I am back from vacation. A lot has taken place since the last time that I was here. Your fearless leader, who has nothing better to do than talk about this Scammer Payback drama almost to a fault, has returned. I'm just kidding. For anybody who doesn't know, like, this Scammer Payback is not the only thing I talk about. I usually talk about, like, internet culture in general. It just seems like right now, a lot of you guys have been really enjoying the coverage that I've been doing of this. And you know what? You gotta give the people what they want. If talking about Scammer Paybacks what pays the bills, then God damn it, we'll talk about Scammer Payback till our eyes turn blue. Which right now they're a lovely shade of green. But like I said before, this is about right and wrong, and why it is not okay to just simply attack somebody and try to ruin their reputation because you dislike them or you had a bad experience with them. Now, if Cons had come out and been like, you know what, I had a bad experience in Scammer Payback, you know, I just want you all to know, like, just be careful. You know, I gave this guy a lot of money. I probably shouldn't have. That's on me, though. But I'm not sure he's spending the money where I think he's spending the money. So this is kind of just a heads up to some of y'all who might be finding him. But no, that's not what Collins does. You know what Collins does? He goes, we must take him down. He must burn at the stake. We will sacrifice him and his children will scream in the streets. I will not stop until his children cannot put their heads on their pillow without fearing I'm behind the door. When Pierogi closes his eyes at night, the last thing he's gonna see is my face. I mean, like, really unhinged stuff. Like, you've become way too invested in this. Like, I know I'm invested in this, but that's just because I need to be able to share the truth with people because you're spouting out so much nonsense. You don't think I'd rather be covering some other things at this point? But no, you just keep coming out with more and more nonsense. I have no choice but to try to defend them because you've absolutely lost your whole damn mind. Not to mention, you've admitted yourself that you are just as guilty of doing all the stuff that you claim Pierogi has. And if the only thing that Pierogi has is the heinous stuff, which we've gone into autistic detail to debunk and show that that narrative was twisted in a very insidious way to try to present him to be way worse than he actually was. When the reality of the situation is, I know things that you've done that are way worse. But we're gonna get back to that later because he made a whole video trying to get out ahead of it. And ironically enough, he left out important little nuggets, or breadcrumbs as he calls them, that would probably paint him in a much worse light than he tried to lead on in that video. But before we dive into all that craziness, let's talk about this video right here. This is a former member of Scammer Payback called Gypsy Rose, who is a well-to-do lady who just enjoyed knitting videos that seem to find herself in the clutches of Pierogi's predatory grasp.
Hi, my name is Gypsy Rose, and this is my story about my time in the Scammer Payback community. I want you to know ahead of time that my background has been in missions work, being around people who are truthful and, you know, honest and, you know, that don't lie to you. So I don't have a lot of boundaries in terms of giving to online charities because I just never had to in the past.
This is a cunning little tactic from Gypsy Rose to be like, hey guys, I've been surrounded by trustworthy people my whole life. I'm susceptible to being lied to. This is why I did what I did. And it continues the theme of this whole entire campaign, which is essentially just trust me, bro, when I tell you these are why you should believe me. And can I just add, like, the fact that they're putting this poor old lady in front of you to try to lie on their behalf is probably one of the cringiest things I think I've ever seen on the internet. And I've seen some cringy stuff this past week.
This punishment stuff is going to stop.
You're not going to tell me what I'm going to do and not do?
I am now the alpha.
Bro. That's not how this works. I am the teacher.
You'll see during this video that Gypsy Rose doesn't really understand the dynamics between a social media influencer and a fan compared to a social media influencer and a friend. And you'll see that quickly she blurs the lines between him being a friend and him being a social media influencer who is running a business. And while I don't blame her because, you know, she's clearly an elderly woman who probably doesn't have her finger on the pulse of what the internet is in current day, it doesn't give her the right to blame Pierogi for what she does next.
And I watched quilting videos. I love to quilt, but that only lasted for so long. I mean, you know, 3-4 months of quilting videos.
Far be it from me to judge someone on what they like, but I mean, 3 to 4 months of quilting videos is a crap ton of quilting. I didn't even realize that there was 3 to 4 months of quilting videos on YouTube, so props to her for that.
So I had come into some extra money, and I prayed to God to know where to send that money.
I'm guessing saving that money never occurred to her as an option, but I mean, far be it for me to judge her. I think it's amazing that she wanted to do something nice with that money and put it to a good cause, which I think we need more people like that in the world, honestly. Again, I'm not going to sit here and bash Gypsy Rose, okay? I think that the problem here is that she just doesn't understand the difference between somebody who's a social media influencer and a fan compared to a social media influencer and their friends.
And the next video on YouTube that was suggested was a Scammer Payback video. And to this day, nobody can tell me why that was suggested when all I watched were quilting and crafting videos.
If anybody's familiar with how the algorithm works, I'm sure Pierogi at the time was probably getting a lot of attention, and YouTube was just pushing it out to a whole bunch of people just to test it and see if they were interested in it. That's how the algorithm works. Even if you're not interested in something, sometimes YouTube will throw it up there to see if it's something that you may be interested in watching. So I guess Gypsy Rose is looking at this like a sign from God that she needed to go and help Pierogi, which again, I think at the end of the day is an actually incredibly noble thing. Like, I don't have a problem with her seeing Pierogi doing good work and then wanting to donate money.
I did not know what scam baiting was, and so, you know, he seemed to have an affinity for older people who are not tech savvy, which is me.
Again, right there, proof that Gypsy Rose is just not familiar with the dynamics of internet culture in the current day.
And I was very impressed by his abilities. And so then, after watching the video, I prayed to know that he was a Christian. And when I tuned in to his Saturday night cooking video that he had with members, he was wearing a hoodie that said God is alive or God is risen, but that was enough of a sign for me that he was a Christian, and so I became a member.
Again, nothing out of the ordinary here. People like to support people who they can relate to, and if you're a Christian and you're a God-fearing person, which I think is an amazing thing to be, then you can find relation in that as a fellow Christian. Now let's get into like the parts where she starts having issues, all right? We could sit here and listen to the story of Gypsy all day, but I want to get to the meat and potatoes. I just felt it was important for you guys to see why she liked him in the first place, and this is why a lot of people like Pierogi and still like Pierogi to this day. I will admit, Pierogi's family has a lot of faith in Christ, and I think having faith in anything is important for one to have purpose in life. Now, I don't know if this is just me, but I feel like most people want to feel like they've left some type of mark on the world when they leave this lane and head on to the next one.
And one of the frequently asked questions on those streams were people wanting to know how they could help. And I want to make it 100% clear, Pierogi never asked for money. He never asked for money.
That's very important to understand what she just said there. Pierogi never asked for money, and in fact, people were asking how they can donate. It's not like Pierogi was out there specifically searching on how to get people to donate money. He never asked for money, and the only reason she even knew that he accepted money was because other people were asking, how can I help? That part is very important in understanding how she decided to start giving money in the first place. Now, I want you to watch what she does here because she's going to literally walk back everything she just said.
However, he did manipulate people by the way he worded things. For example, he'd say, is there anything wrong with trying to put food on the table for my family?
Now, I don't know about you, but having personality isn't something that I'd consider a crime, and saying something along the lines of, can't blame me for trying to put food on the table for my family, especially since the whole reason that she knew that he accepted money in the first place was because other people were saying, I want to donate. So again, walking back everything she just said that was a positive towards Pierogi to try to act like that what he's saying is now a manipulative tactic. Now let me ask you, if I were to sit here and say, hey, thanks for donating, you're helping me put food on the table for my family, would you consider that as someone manipulating you into giving me donations? Or would you just think it's a clever way of saying, hey, thank you for donating to my cause?
He talked about how he quit his job due to bullying and that this was his only income. He highly implied that he did not have money. I know I'm not the only one who fell for this, by the way.
Now, I'm sure Gypsy Rose doesn't understand how YouTube works, so I can't fault her for that. However, yes, you do get ad revenue and you do get sponsorship money. And at 200,000 subscribers, that's more than enough to be able to leave your job and try to make YouTube your full-time gig. But something that also creators count on is donations from their fan base. As of right now, I hardly make any money, and I'm perfectly okay with not making any money. Your attention is more than enough for me. I am a small creator, and I realize that YouTube is a grind. If anybody's ever tried to do YouTube, you know just how far of a journey it is from 0 subscribers to 200,000. And yes, 200,000 is more than enough to quit your job because it shows that there's something there that you can build off of. So when Pierogi's trying to get donations to continue doing what he loves, there's nothing wrong with that. 99% of creators accept donations because it allows us to continue doing what we do. Maybe one day I will have enough subscribers to be able to quit my job, but that day is not today, and that day probably won't be tomorrow or the day after that. But you know what? Maybe one day the universe will grant me that privilege. And there's nothing wrong with that.
I joined Scammer Payback on the YouTube at $100 per month. And with that, I was supposed to receive a 15-minute one-on-one with Pierogi once a month. I was able to go to all the members-only things. During the streams, when I would give like additional monies, he would call out my name and say how sweet I was. During the members only, he would talk softer to me than to others, and this all goes to show the manipulation tactics, because other members noticed that, and they would send me messages on Discord saying how much Pierogi loved me and how he talks to me differently and how he's very tender with me.
So let's try to wrap our heads around this one, okay? When she engaged with Pierogi was a little nicer to her than other people in the community, probably because she was buying all the merch, she was donating a lot of money, and Pierogi probably recognized that she was an elderly woman. And I don't know about you, but I tend to almost baby talk elderly people, and I don't mean to do it on purpose. It's just kind of like my way of kind of like trying to be nice. And I don't do that because I'm trying to manipulate them. I do that because I'm trying to just be a kind person. So Gypsy's taking this as a manipulation tactic, when clearly it was just Pierogi was trying to be super grateful to someone who was donating a lot of money. And obviously other members in the community recognize that because they literally told her. You heard her say it. Like, I'm not even gonna lie to you, when I see someone's a member of my community, I tend to be a little more grateful towards them than, say, like just somebody who's a passerby. That doesn't mean I dislike the person that I'm not being as nice to. It just means that I'm showing more value towards the people that are showing value towards me. It is a common human thing that we do. Nowhere in that interaction am I trying to be manipulative or anything like that. It's just a human emotion of showing value towards people who seem to care more. The fact that she's considering this manipulation makes me wonder if someone had put these thoughts inside of her head, saying, oh, he's only nice to you because you give him money, and that he doesn't genuinely care about you at all. Gee, I wonder who could have put that thought in her head. I mean, just look at the hoodie she's wearing. You cannot sit here and tell me that her and Collins didn't have a conversation ahead of time about what talking points were important to share. Because I find it weird that Gypsy would one day love Pierogi, then the next day hate Pierogi. That doesn't just happen on a whim. There's usually people who get inside your ear and start telling you things that you start to believe. And Gypsy seems like a very gullible woman, no offense, but she seems susceptible to influence.
Just to let you know, I did not receive my perks, my one-on-ones, but I remember one time late at night, he went into voice chat, and there was just myself and one other person there, and he spoke very gently to both of us and said how he had just sung his son to sleep and that he was getting ready to carry him upstairs and put him to bed. And I remember thinking, what a great dad. I thought he was being his real self at that time.
So how does she know that Pierogi's not being his genuine self? What if he did just go and sing his kid to sleep and then decide, you know what, let me go check in and see who's in voice chat and say hi? I find it incredibly hard to believe that Gypsy Rose came up with all this stuff on her own and that she wasn't led by a bunch of people who tend to be very aggressive in trying to promote what they believe is the accurate information. If you guys get who I'm talking about, that whole group. Now with a woman like Gypsy, who's easily influenced, wouldn't be a shock to me that her attitude changed when a bunch of chattering birds got in her ears and started telling her things. Just something to think about. Now, Gypsy's gonna go on to just kind of regurgitate the same talking points. I think at one point she adds that she never received her perks, which I can confirm that she did at least get one-on-one with Pierogi. I mean, right there she told you that Pierogi made himself available to her and that he was very polite. At the end of the day, though, my take on the whole Gypsy thing is I think she just desperately wants to be part of a community. She doesn't care what the cause is. She just wants to be accepted with a group that she can call her friends. And unfortunately, she's found her group with an incredibly toxic group of people who are focused on absolutely the dumbest thing that you could possibly focus on, and that is trying to take down a channel that does so much good for people. The only question I'd want to ask Gypsy is, like, do you feel like what you're doing is right? Do you feel like it's really representing Christian morals by trying to destroy a man's life? Is that a Christian principle that I've just failed to understand? Because I always thought the Christians were all about forgiveness and to pick yourself up and dust yourself off when you got knocked down. I mean, I I could be wrong. I mean, I was raised Catholic, but I feel like they're kind of related, aren't they? Now, the next video we're going to take a look at is Colin's trying to get ahead of information he knows I have on him. And ironically enough, he decides to leave out little tidbits, but let's just take a look at some of the things he said first. And when we're done, I will fill in the gaps. And I think some of those gaps are going to shock the hell out of you.
During 2021, I was in a very, very low point in my life emotionally. I wasn't coping with COVID well. So during 2021, I was in a very, very low point in my life emotionally. I wasn't coping with COVID well, with isolation well. My marriage and I, my wife and I, we were very much on polar opposite wavelengths because she is very introverted and I'm very extroverted. And so she was at work all day because her job basically only kept her home for about 3 months when the pandemic started, whereas mine kept me work from home. So once the doors opened up again and you could go do stuff, all she wanted to do was stay home, and all I wanted to do was get out.
All right, so right away, Collins is basically trying to set up that it's not his fault he behaved the way he did. It's because of the situation he was in. Because you know what happens when your wife and you are disagreeing? Everybody just wants to go out and cheat. That's not a normal thing that people do. Does it happen? Sure. But, I mean, come on, dude.
This is a video of me owning up to my past. And once I found that community, I received a lot of attention and was giving a lot of attention to people of the opposite sex. This behavior was completely inappropriate, mainly because I was married. Now, I want to be very clear. There was no sort of like pictures shared. There was no like videos shared. There was no private video calls that were explicit in any shape or form. In some of the messages we had back and forth, though, it was extremely inappropriate. It was not correct. It was not right. They varied in age range. Everyone was an adult, is what I will say. And again, I'm purposely just leaving things vague because if anyone happens to know what they're talking about, I don't want them to feel uncomfortable.
Collins, are you sure that everybody was adult, or were they maybe 17 turning 18? I'm just asking you because you're saying everybody's an adult, but even if you are like a 30-something-year-old man and you're trying to court an 18-year-old, some may consider that to be somewhat predatory. Now, it's pretty close. I was looking at the girl's birthday, and she just celebrated her 21st birthday, so, I mean, that would be 20, 19, 18. You said you did this about 2 to 3 years ago. This is flirting on a line of suspicious at best, bro. It is 2024. He said that most of this took place in 2021. So depending on what month he was talking to this girl, she could have been 17, she could have been 18. Now, either way, it's still gross. I know that 18 is legal by age, but some may consider that to be kind of like gross, I guess. I mean, personally, I wouldn't date an 18-year-old. I mean, even though it's legal, it doesn't make it right. You be the judge. And again, this all comes down to the fact of what month was he talking to her. And the fact that we have to figure out what month he was talking to her just should show you how gross this actually is. Like, was he waiting for her to turn 18 and then immediately bought a plane ticket? Either way, like, not a good look, guy. Not a good look at all.
So there was about 3 to 4 different people I was in conversation with. And the reality is it really was just kind of in good humor and fun for the most part. But it was 100% inappropriate. There was one individual that actually the entire community was well aware of. Me and this individual, we talked a lot. There was a plane ticket booked to potentially go visit them.
Why don't you have a seat there and get comfortable for a minute?
So he books a plane ticket, not for the other women, which I don't know who they are, but I've been able to find out who the other girl was. Obviously, I'm not going to share information. I'm not a scumbag like that. But he books a plane ticket to go visit the girl right as she turned 18. Who knows? I mean, like, again, it all comes down to what month was he talking to this girl. And regardless of whether or not she just turned 18, is that not predatory? Come on.
And the very next day is when I canceled that plane ticket.
He was probably like, oh shit, this is a really bad idea, man. Chris Hansen could be sitting there waiting for me.
So no cookies for you?
And fun fact, he got talked into canceling the plane ticket. So it wasn't like it was his decision. Someone was like, dude, you're effing up big time here.
I think it was the very next day when I came clean to my wife about the behavior I had been having. And I moved out for about 2 months.
Did you move out, Collins, or was your wife like, get the hell out of my house, you dirty bastard?
Honestly, I was done in a lot of ways with the relationship. I didn't think it was going to be reconciled, but my wife is an absolute rock, and I do not deserve her.
I was getting so much punani on the Discord, I was like, well, I don't need you anymore. I'm a Discord celebrity, goddammit.
And I did not deserve her forgiveness. And I came clean with her with everything. I showed her contents of messages.
Oh, honey, check this one out. This is where I told her my favorite position. You remember when I told you that when we first got together? Still same one.
And she forced me into marriage counseling, and we worked on it, and we got through it. Him and Brandon helped save my marriage. So, yeah, that's my past. And if someone somehow has specifics, things that were said and things that were shared, I'm going to own it right now. It was inappropriate, it was not correct, and it was not right.
All right, now I'll be honest, I don't have those messages. I mean, I can only find so much with my sources, but you know what? I'm sure you can use your imagination about what kind of conversations he had with a 17 going on 18-year-old girl. He said it himself. They were inappropriate. Since I'm potentially dealing with a minor, I can't give you like the evidence and show you who the person is because it's just wrong. All right, so I guess in a way I'm asking you, trust me, bro. I know I'm no better than these people. Ah!
You were the chosen one! It was said that you would destroy this and not join them!
I'm sorry, Obi-Wan, I'm sorry! Anyway, I think you guys get the point, right? Now, I want to just point out again, this is all allegedly. I reached out to the girl, never got a response. I don't blame her, right? Who would want to be associated with him? Makes sense to me. I think I've nailed it home. I don't think we need to continue on with this video. It's just a bunch of him making a bunch of excuses. In fact, in the video, he goes on to say that everybody in the Discord, including Pierogi and Brandon, knew what he was doing, which somehow makes that okay. Somehow it's Pierogi and Brandon's responsibility to make sure that you're not texting jailbait. I don't think that's how that works. I think as a man, you're supposed to just like, you know, not do that shit.
What are you doing?
Now, I just want to say I don't take pleasure in showing you guys this, all right? I'm not trying to ruin Collins' life, even though he's trying to ruin Pierogi's life. I just wanted to point out that isn't it ironic that someone who is screaming that Pierogi is a predator and that Brandon is a predator has a history of predatory behavior? Welcome to the internet. So if you were a YouTuber and you knew that your credibility was about to be destroyed, but you were so hell-bent on your mission of destroying Scammer Payback, what would be something that you could do? Maybe create a second channel where you pretend to be someone who is anonymous behind a weird cartoon character? Anyway, yeah, Collins decided to create a second channel where he's pretending to be like some secret informant in Scammer Payback. And it's kind of funny. I mean, you just listen to how they talk. It's Collins, guys. All right. You know, you don't need to be a genius to figure this out.
I've very much been Team Pierogi over the past few weeks as information about him has been coming out. I didn't want to believe it was true, but more and more dots are starting to connect the truth that I simply cannot believe that he is the person I thought he was. I'm disguising my voice and hiding myself because I'm afraid of the repercussions that could come if he were to find out I was making this video.
No, you're not. You are hiding yourself and disguising your voice because you cannot get more people on board, so the only option you have is to create more alt accounts. I know this is you, Collins. Anybody with 2 cents in their brains can understand that this is Collins, right? Think about it. If you don't trust me, just go watch the video and listen to how they present their arguments. It's exactly the same way Collins presents his arguments, right? With no evidence and just speculation. And since he knew that I was coming out with this information at some point that's going to make him look bad, he has to figure out a new way to attack Pierogi. This is a psyop, guys. I hope you don't fall for it. I really do. Because at this point, this is like top tier pettiness. Like, who makes a second account and pretends to be somebody else? It's freaking psychotic. It's psychotic, guys. I'd bet my life on the fact that that's Collins. And one day it'll come out. And I wish that somebody would have took that bet because then I'd have 2 lives. I think the most shocking thing about all this is just how stupid he thinks people are. Remember, if you think you are the smartest person in the room, just leave that room. The problem is he's got people behind him probably giving him these ideas, being like, oh yeah, this is gold. I guarantee you they're all sitting in a Discord together, coming up with ideas on how they can attack Pierogi next. But when your group's led by people like Gypsy Rose, who can probably show you how to quote pretty damn well, but not really use tech well, then you gotta rely on the next best thing, right? And that's the guy who knows how to put videos on YouTube. So go to Collins, right? And when people stop believing because your reputation got so bad, what's the next best thing you do? Create an alt account, pretend to be this panda thing, and then act like you're some new person who's been a supporter of Pierogi, and then all of a sudden, now you're magically waking up. He really treats you like you are an idiot. I hope you understand that. So if you want to believe that this panda guy is some random new person that all of a sudden wants to throw their hat in the fray, then go for it. But we all know who it is, Collins. You're not fooling anybody. And I'm sure you're watching this being like, geez, how did he figure it out? And it's because we're not stupid, dude. We're not stupid. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Until more comes out, I'm gonna probably focus on some other things. But apparently Savannah's like got a video in the works that she's gonna try to expose Pierogi to. I'm sure that's gonna be freaking amazing. I can't wait to respond to that one. She is like their new chosen champion, I guess, where she's gonna be the leader to take down Scammer Payback, which Honestly, again, I say to this day would be a disservice to everybody if all of a sudden you're just taking down a channel that provides so much for the country at large. Like, why don't you focus on Boogie2988? Like, he's a scumbag. Like, that guy just robbed his whole audience. And instead of focusing on people like him, you're still focused on the one guy who's actually doing good in the world. Like, get a life, man. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace. If you like this video and you want to see me absolutely demolish their arguments up to this point, click this video right here.